The emergency department never truly slept. It only learned how to whisper between alarms. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead as stretchers rolled past. Nurses moved with practiced urgency, and the air carried that familiar mix of antiseptic and restrained panic. Officer Mark Halden stood near the security desk, arms crossed, posture rigid, enjoying the authority that came with a uniform in a place where people were already afraid. He had been called in after a minor disturbance in the ambulance bay, and now he lingered, watching everyone who passed as if the hospital itself needed policing. That was when he noticed the man standing near the wall, holding a slim leather folder instead of a phone. He was a black man in his late 40s, wearing a plain jacket, calm to the point of stillness, eyes following the movement of stretchers rather than the officer watching him. Halden's gaze lingered longer than necessary. He stepped closer, boots loud against the polished floor, letting the sound announce him before his voice ever did. "You can't stand here," Halden said, casually, nodding toward the waiting area. "Families are supposed to be over there." The man turned, expression neutral, not startled and not defensive. "I'm not waiting for anyone," he replied evenly. Halden raised an eyebrow, already irritated by the lack of deference. "Then you should probably move along," he said, scanning the man quickly. "This area's restricted." "I'm aware," the man answered. "It should have ended there." A simple clarification, a passing moment in a busy hospital. But Halden chuckled, shaking his head as if amused by something only he could see. "You know, everyone says that," he said, glancing around as though seeking agreement. "Got credentials? Or are we just hoping confidence works today?" The man reached into his jacket slowly and produced an ID badge, clipped neatly but not worn. He held it out without ceremony. Halden took it, barely glanced at the name, and laughed. "This says doctor," he said, voice light, almost playful. "What department is that supposed to impress?" A nurse walking by slowed, her steps hesitant. A resident paused near the charting station, watching quietly. The man's voice remained steady, accurate. Halden handed the badge back, dismissive. "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but doctors don't wander around unsecured areas without escort," he said. "You can wait like everyone else." "I'm not wandering," the man replied, "and I don't need an escort." Halden smiled, the kind that carried patience sharpened into condescension. "Sir, if I had $1 for every person who claimed to be something important in this building, I wouldn't need overtime." A few feet away, a nurse whispered something to another nurse. Their eyes flicked between the officer and the man by the wall. The man adjusted his grip on the folder, not tightening, not loosening. "There's a patient waiting," he said, quietly. Halden laughed again, louder this time. "Oh, I'm sure," he replied. "Why don't you let the real doctors handle that?" The words hung in the air, heavier than Halden seemed to realize. A monitor beeped steadily somewhere down the hall, marking time. The man looked past Halden toward the trauma bay doors, where movement had increased and voices sharpened. He took a small step forward. Halden blocked him without touching, shifting his stance just enough. "I said, wait," he said, tone firm now. "Unless you want me to escort you out instead." The man stopped, eyes lifting slowly to meet Halden's. There was no anger there, only focus. "Officer," he said calmly, "you may want to listen." Halden scoffed. "What I want is for you to stop pretending." At that exact moment, the overhead intercom crackled to life. The voice that came through was clipped, urgent, and unmistakably authoritative. "Code Blue, Trauma 2, the voice announced. "Cardiac arrest. We need Dr. Elijah Morgan immediately." The hallway shifted. Nurses straightened. Residents looked up, and movement surged toward trauma. To Halden frowned. Irritation still fresh. "That's not you," he muttered under his breath, waving dismissively. The intercom crackled again, louder this time, urgency sharpening each word. "Dr. Elijah Morgan, please report to Trauma 2. Repeat, Dr. Morgan, to Trauma 2. The man by the wall stepped forward, already turning toward the corridor. Halden reached out reflexively, palm open. "Hey!" A charge nurse intercepted him instantly. She said sharply, "Move." Halden hesitated, confusion flickering across his face. "He can't just... He's the cardiothorac attending," the nurse snapped, already walking. "And if you delay him one more second, that patient may not survive." The words landed hard. Halden looked from the nurse to the man now striding down the hall. Jacket coming off, calm urgency replacing stillness. The hallway seemed to fall silent around him, not because sound had stopped, but because understanding had arrived. Dr. Morgan disappeared through the trauma bay doors as a team closed in behind him. Gloves snapped, commands were exchanged, and the room shifted into controlled chaos. Halden stood frozen near the security desk, badge suddenly heavier than it had been minutes earlier. Conversations around him resumed in fragments, quieter, edged with discomfort. A resident passed him without looking. A nurse brushed by, not bothering to hide her disapproval. Minutes stretched. The monitor beeps from trauma to echoed faintly down the corridor. Each one a reminder of time lost and assumptions made. Halden shifted his weight, suddenly unsure of where to stand. Authority felt thinner here now, less reliable. The trauma bay doors eventually opened, and Dr. Morgan stepped out, sleeves rolled, hands steady but tired. A nurse followed, nodding once. "We have a pulse," she said softly. Relief rippled through the hallway. Someone exhaled audibly. Another nurse wiped her eyes and turned away. Dr. Morgan paused, noticing Halden for the first time since the interruption. Their eyes met again, but now the silence carried a different weight. Halden cleared his throat. "Doctor," he began, voice lower than before. Dr. Morgan didn't interrupt him. He simply waited. "I didn't know," Halden said finally. "I was just doing my job." Dr. Morgan studied him for a moment, not with accusation, but with something closer to fatigue. "So was I," he replied. He turned and walked away, disappearing down the corridor without another word. Halden remained where he was, watching the hospital move around him with renewed awareness. The uniform no longer felt like permission, only responsibility. A senior nurse approached the desk and met his eyes. "Next time," she said quietly, "just read the badge." Halden nodded, unable to argue. The hospital settled back into its rhythm, alarms rising and falling, voices weaving urgency into routine. But something subtle had shifted, an unspoken correction written into the memory of the place. Dr. Morgan returned to his work, his name now spoken with the respect it had always carried, his presence no longer questioned. He didn't dwell on the moment because he couldn't afford to. And Officer Halden learned, in a corridor filled with quiet beeping machines and moving stretchers, that authority without humility can be louder than ignorance and far more dangerous. This was a moment that didn't trend, didn't make headlines, and didn't need applause. It simply unfolded, corrected itself, and left behind a lesson that would echo every time a name was announced overhead and the hospital fell silent.